Moving on from the cash budgets, we now will look at how to prepare a functional budget. To do this, we must firstly identify the principal budget factor. That is normally sales. Once this budget has been prepared, then all the other budgets can be prepared from those figures, starting with the production budget in units. This will adjust for the opening and closing stock of finished goods. Once you have the production budget in units, you can then prepare the labour budget by looking at how many hours required to make one unit. Once you have that figure, you can then work out how many hours of labour you need to make the required production, and then using the rate of pay, how much that would cost. With the production budget, we can also go on to calculate our material usage budget. And the material usage budget looks at the quantity. And that quantity could be in kilos or litres, looking at how much material is required per unit and then how much production there's going to be in units. And that will give us our material usage in kilos or litres. We can then use that to calculate how much material we need to buy. And the material we need to buy will be adjusted for by the closing and opening stock of raw materials. And that will give us our material purchases quantity, which we can multiply by the cost per unit, which will give us our material purchase budget in pounds. We can then put together a production cost budget. This will take the material usage budget in kilos from here, multiplied by the cost of materials. And then we also include the labour budget from previously calculated, and to that we would add any overheads, possibly using an overhead absorption rate. And that will give us our production cost budget. Finally, we can prepare a budgeted profit and loss account, taking the sales budget from previously calculated, deducting our production cost budget. We can illustrate the first part of this process, how we go from the sales figures to our production budget, by using example 6.2. I've already put the sales figures into the table for quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4, using the information in the question. Expected sales are 25,000 units for quarter 1 and quarter 2, and 30,000 thereafter. We then use the question to put the other information in. Opening stock is expected to be 10,000 units. Closing stock should be 20% of the anticipated sales in the following quarter. So we prepare a working and in the examination we'd expect to see these workings, and so for our closing stock for quarter 1 is going to be based on quarter 2 sales, which is 25,000 units at 20%. and 20% of 25,000, 5,000 units. So I can put my 5,000 units into the table as my closing stock. I now need to calculate the production required. And if I look at my figures, I've already got 10,000 units in my warehouse. I don't need to make them, but I need to make my amounts to be sold and my closing stock. So the production I require for quarter 1 is going to be 5,000 plus 25,000 minus 10,000, and that will give me 20,000 units. I can then move on to quarter 2. My opening stock for quarter 2 will be my closing stock for quarter 1. If I look at my closing stock for quarter 2 in my workings, I'm going to look at quarter 3 sales, and quarter 3 sales are 30,000 at 20%, and that equals 6,000 units. And I can put that into my table. Again, I look at the figures that I've calculated. 5,000 units I've already got in stock. I don't need to make them, but I do need to make enough for the sales of 25,000 units and 6,000 units. And that will give me production required of 26,000 units. My opening stock for quarter 3 is going to be my closing stock for quarter 2. I don't need to recalculate the closing stock for that period, and so I can indicate that this is going to be my closing stock not just for quarter 2 but quarter 3 and quarter 4, because we've got no further increases. And I can calculate my production required moving forward. Now sometimes you'll be asked to look at the figures for the whole period. The key thing to remember is that your opening stock is the opening stock at the beginning of the period, 10,000 units, and your closing stock is your closing stock at the end of the period, at the end of quarter 4, which is 6,000 units. So overall, in the whole year, we are going to need to make 106,000 units. The next video will then move on to look at how we use our production budget here, those production figures that we've calculated, which in this case will be 20,000, 26,000 and 30,000 and 30,000, how we use those figures to calculate what our labour budget is going to be and what our material usage budget is going to be.